Welcome to the northeast of England. If you're joining me for the first time, hi, I'm Caroline. I'm spending a week going on adventures in the area of the UK that I grew up in. So far, I've marvelled at waterfalls in the North Pennines whilst going on a rainy hike. I've delved into the Roman history along Hadrian's Wall with a visit to Vindelander's Fort and Army Museum, and thoroughly enjoyed a sunny visit to Alnwick, exploring its gardens, views of the castle from the edge of the town, and the marvellous Barter Bucks. Today, we'll be headed just 20 minutes drive from Alnwick to the National Trust's Cragside, right on the edge of Northumberland National Park, with a quick visit to Wooler to hike up Humbleton Hill. Good morning and welcome to the National Trust's Cragside. Cragside is a really old Victorian house that is arguably Britain's first smart home, as it was illuminated by hydroelectricity and powered by hydraulics. In addition to the house, there is beautiful grounds with lots of waymarked trails, and there's also a drive that we can go on in our vehicle, which is something that I've never come across before in a National Trust property. We're starting off today by doing some of the waymarked trails because I'm joined by my brother and his dog Sam, so we're getting him out on a little bit of a walk, and this afternoon the National Trust staff members have said that the house is a little bit more quiet, so we'll drop into the house a little bit later on today. We were continuing up there.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Tumbleton Lake that we've just walked around is a little bit higher up than where we are currently. The idea is that the water comes out of Tumbleton Lake and goes down this Archimedes screw. The gravity is pulling the water downwards and causes the Archimedes screw to twist just like a turbine would when creating electricity. Cragside has over 1,000 acres, 14 different waymarked trails that are all quite well signposted, and they make up about 14 miles of trails. We are starting off by doing the Armstrong Trail, and it goes past lakes, it goes through woods, and I think there is the possibility to take a slight detour to go off into a bit of a formal garden too. Cragside was the home of Lord and Lady Armstrong, and this greenhouse that's in the formal garden was built in 1870, and it was both, I suppose, like a social status, because back in the Victorian times, if you were able to grow your own fruit, it said something about how important you were in society, but also it was yet another nod to the engineering ingenuity of the couple. These plant pots are actually rotating, so throughout the day the plant pots would get rotated so that the fruit all had the opportunity to get the maximum sunlight, and it wasn't like the fruit at the back of these pots were being neglected. The greenhouses are set up on a hill and they're facing south, so that also would benefit from a maximum availability of sunlight. In addition to that, all of the plant pots were put on stepped up terraces, which again allowed for the plants and trees at the back to get more sunlight than if it had all been on the flat. Learned that the terraces inside of the greenhouse were actually heated by an elaborate heating system, and there was a furnace underground, and what it meant is that the gardeners were able to grow those fruits, particularly the more exotic ones such as the lemons and oranges, for a longer period of the year. Armstrong Trail has now brought us into the Pinetum, and this is home to some of the largest conifers that the UK has, and a lot of them were brought over from North America. Having made it down to the bottom of the valley, we've come out to the Netherton Turbine. It was created by William Armstrong because he had the Netherton farm and it helped power the machinery on there. It was built originally in 1881 but had been restored in 1996. It's likely that anything that you can see on the outside would have been the originals, but the inner workings that you can't see unless you were to obviously open it up are likely to have rusted and corroded, and so as part of the restoration it will have been the things inside that were replaced. From the very bottom of the valley, unfortunately, the footpaths on the other side of the river are closed, and there looks to be a stunning gorge. It's giving me flashbacks to Lydford Gorge in Dartmoor National Park. So we're just walking back on ourselves on the same path as what we used to get down to the bottom of the valley. And my tummy is rumbling, so I think we're going to make our way back up to get some food. So we've been and had lunch, and I ended up, even though I've packed some sandwiches, went and had a really nice tomato soup with a cheese scone. It looked to me on first glances like they put in some pesto on the top, but when I started eating it, it definitely didn't taste like pesto, and it took me up until like the last couple of mouthfuls to realise that it was a salsa verde that they'd put in there. I'm not the biggest fan of salsa verde though. We headed for the Colossal House, built in 1863 as a second home for William Armstrong. Some would argue that it's Britain's first smart home, as it was illuminated with hydroelectricity and powered by hydraulics. The library is home to 4 of Joseph Swan's original incandescent lamps. The vases would sit on top of Mercury, and the copper side of the vase acted as a return wire. Servants activated the lights by placing them into the Mercury, wearing gloves obviously to avoid electrocution. The power came from Armstrong's hydroelectricity system, where power was generated from the man-made lakes across the estate. The kitchen was pioneering at its time, with its double-height ceiling and windows to match, meaning plenty of natural light and ventilation for the servants to work in, as well as labour-saving gadgets like water-powered rotating spit, an early dishwasher, something that didn't really become mainstream until the 1970s, and a dumbwaiter that hoisted items from the scullery and pantry, and a large range for cooking. The stunning marble and alabaster mixed fireplace that dominates the drawing room spans from floor to ceiling. We were fortunate enough to be able to see this, as it had recently undergone conservation work due to it, ironically, having had water damage, a place at Cragside where water was actually unwelcome. Lady Armstrong had a passion for gardening, flora and fauna, and spent time creating the outdoor natural rooms that I'd spent the morning enjoying, such as the Pinetum and the formal garden. It also goes a long way to explain why so much of the interior design is influenced by nature and wildlife, from the collection of shells and insects, wood carvings of flora and fauna, taxidermied animals in the halls, and William Morris wallpapers. We are about to take a ride around the Carriage Drive, which is 6 miles in total, but we might be stopping off at a few places along the way. Given though that we're in a campervan, we're just going to have to take things very, very carefully, because there are a few lower arches and a few boulders sticking out in the very, very narrow roadways. The 6-mile circular carriage drive was originally created for Lady Armstrong, as she wanted some way in which she could ride a horse or take the horse and carriage throughout the estate to enjoy it. It's still open to us today, which we can obviously do in motorised vehicles, and what's really nice is that there's car parks dotted throughout the whole thing. We've decided to park up at the Nelly Moss North car park, and it's taken us down to Nelly Moss Lake, and I assume that this is the northern one of the two. We're taking a bit of a walk along its shore because I believe at the other end there's something called the Flume, which has definitely piqued my interest, and I think there might be a couple of other things such as a labyrinth around here too, so we'll have a little bit of an explore at the really opposite end to where we were this morning at the house. We arrived at the Flume, and it turns out that it was designed by Lord Armstrong to take the water from the moors down to that Nelly Moss North Lake, and it was used to generate electricity. We think this might be the labyrinth. We did overhear a family at the Flume saying that they felt like they'd only done a tiny part of the labyrinth, so we've come off of the main trail, and I don't know, we'll wander, we'll see. So whilst rhododendrons are a bit more of a late spring flower, I'm almost certain that the foliage that we can see at the moment, try number 2, duck. The foliage that we can see at the moment is rhododendrons, and in the literature that I read it did say that it was rhododendrons that made up this particular labyrinth. Now yesterday when we were at Alnwick Garden it was bamboo, and when we got to the centre there was a sign in Latin telling us to piss off, so I wonder what we'll find in the centre of this one, if we can even find the centre, because this, oh my goodness, I'm having to properly crouch, this is crazy, really, really overgrown, but it feels properly wild. We're now at this point in the labyrinth, and it's come to a T-junction, and I have no idea where my brother and Laura have gone. They could have gone left, they could have gone right, and I need to work it out. We're all good, we've found them again, and I think we've also found our way out of the labyrinth, or at least the boulders there, or at least we seem to have come out into a little bit more of an open space. Driven a little bit further north to a place called Wooler, or more specifically a hill called Humbleton Hill just north of the village or town, and that is because my brother is a paraglider, and it is a hill that you can go paragliding off of. So Laura and I are going to take a hike up the hill, which hopefully we'll get a nice view from. We'll watch my brother go off paragliding and then meet him back down at the bottom once he's landed. And the uphill part of this climb begins, and never have I ever felt quite so ill-equipped to hike a hill as what I am right now. I've got a cutesy little leather backpack on that's more suitable for going out in a town or around some gardens, and jeans on, but thankfully I do have my hiking shoes with me, so at least that's something. My brother is just gone. It's way up the hill, and he's the one who is carrying the paraglider as well, so he's got even more weight on his back. He did say that it takes him about 10 or 15 minutes to get set up before he can fly off, so hopefully we'll see him at the top. I, on the other hand, have been a little bit distracted as well by the gigantic mushrooms. Some of them have been like the size of my hand. They're just growing on this hillside in August. I think it sums up our summer. It's been almost non-existent to the point where autumnal mushrooms are growing. It's unfortunately incredibly hazy. It's August, it's what, like about 6 o'clock in the evening, and it had started off as such a beautifully sunny day today, and I'm just looking at how flat it reaches out over beautiful farmers' fields, and I just think if it wasn't quite so hazy, we'd definitely be able to see the North Sea a lot better, and also just with blue skies and sunshine. I bet this is a lovely hill to come and climb. So this is definitely a new experience for me, trying to hike with a dog on a lead. Because Sam is my brother's dog, he explained to me that if I didn't have him on the lead when he takes off on the paraglider, Sam, yeah, I'm not very good. Sam, come on, let's go. There we go. Yes, because it's my brother's dog, when my brother takes off on the paraglider, it's very likely that he would go running after him. And then as we're walking back down on the hillside, he also said if you don't put him back on the lead, it's very likely that he will just run off to try and meet my brother down at the landing site, because it's somewhere where they both come quite frequently. So I feel like I'm getting dragged a little bit, so my apologies if this is a little bit on the bumpy side.